What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. This video is going to be looking at the Champions League match, first round between Barcelona and Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich ended up winning comfortably in the end over Barcelona. And before we get into the tactics and how it happened, check out both my books. There's links in the description below to this video, and also check out Keyframe, which is how I made this video. Let's look at how Bayern Munich beat Barcelona in their first Champions League match of the new season. So Barcelona lined up with a back three with three central defenders and wing backs on either side. Then from here they went with a midfield three with a single pivot. And now what would happen was the two forwards up top in their 3-5-2 would then play as a false nine, trying to create numerical superiority and get Memphis Depay as the free player on the ball in advanced positions. Now for Bayern Munich and how they defended against this, they went with Robert Lewandowski as their lone forward, and then they went with a 4-2-3-1 underneath this. So their wingers were tasked with pressing out to in against the Barcelona central defenders in the wide positions. And then now we have our midfield, our double pivot, which were tasked with one covering the false nine and the advanced midfielder. So this would leave them susceptible to numerical superiority in Barcelona's favor. And early on, Barcelona were able to take advantage of this and have a few progressions. But as the game went on, Bayern Munich advanced their fullbacks, as we start to see here the player in between jumping and in between blocking access to the false nine. But as the game went on, more often than not, this player would jump to neutralize the numerical advantage and allow the double pivot to then take care of the false nine, and then the Sané on the weak side would stay very narrow in their defensive phase, control the center, and force Barcelona to create the free player through the player who's furthest away from the ball, which didn't give them too much of an advantage in possession. They would also then mark with numerical equality at the back and play 1v1 among center defenders. So here we go, another early on stage picture with Bayern Munich in their high block in their 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 in this instance. So we have each of the midfielders of Bayern Munich marking a midfielder from Barcelona, and now the free player is Memphis Depay playing that false nine role. So he's able to then get free between the lines, but currently doesn't have direct access to the ball. So although he's free, he doesn't have direct access, and the wide areas aren't as open as they were in the initial moment of the match, because now the fullbacks are advancing on, being a little bit more brave, because as the game went on, the Bayern Munich central defenders became more and more comfortable playing one-on-one against the Barcelona central forward, and at times they just naturally had a 2 versus 1 situation in this position, and the fullbacks were very brave in pressing and jumping to the Barcelona wingback. As Barcelona move up the field, they maintain their shape with a 3-5-2 and a single pivot. They really didn't use a double pivot as an 8 dropping deeper. They pretty much the whole game stuck with a single pivot and then looked to create a diamond shape with the false nine of the forward. But here we start to see then Memphis Depay maintaining his higher position further forward. And then how Bayern Munich deal with this is they stick with their 4-2-3-1 in a deeper position, but they increase their compactness, so their double pivot of Bayern Munich are in the same proximity naturally of the two advanced 8 from Barcelona. So this gives their back 4 coverage and deters any third line passes going further forward from the Barcelona central defenders. And what happens now is the weak side player, the player furthest from the ball, is the player free. If we look at it, and through this player being the furthest from the ball, he doesn't have direct access, and they didn't ever use a long diagonal switch or an accurate one throughout the match to exploit this overload and create 2v1s in the wide area. So they were very susceptible to being isolated on the ball when they were in possession, and Bayern Munich had their shape structured. Now we start to see the wide central defender driving a little bit into the midfield, trying to displace a wide midfielder of Bayern Munich and exploit the numerical advantage they have in the center. But again, the free player is the weak side player, furthest from the ball, and Sané is tucking in to split his access between the wingback and the weak side central midfielder. So Sané is taking care of 2 players just by maintaining compactness, and the weak side attacking midfielder from Barcelona doesn't have direct access to the ball because of their shifting and their use of cover shadows. And one important concept to note is when the ball went into a wide position, Bayern Munich had a very good sense of diagonal compactness throughout the game, and this limited the amount of diagonal passes Barcelona were able to enter from the wide areas into central position. As we see, the diagonal compactness here is very tight, and the diagonal partnerships among defenders is crucial for their success in isolating Barcelona's possession in wider areas. Now with Bayern Munich in possession, they went with a 4-2-3-1, and oftentimes the double pivot for Bayern Munich didn't stay this way. Goretzka would usually have the freedom to go further forward. Sané played in a more central position, locating himself in the left half space, often staggering himself Davies to then allow Davies to go further forward, where then Pavard had his natural tendency to stay a little bit deeper and connected to his two central defenders. So now we see our back four from Bayern Munich, and now our single holding midfielder with an overload in each of the half spaces between the lines, which pinned the back five and gave Bayern Munich numerical superiority going forward and gave them very flexible movement when they were between the lines. So now we see the Barcelona back five. Now the fifth player is just in this notification here at the bottom of our screen. So the wingback is right here, creating access to Alphonso Davies. But now in Barcelona's shape, half spaces became very available because the midfielders were easily displaced with their shifting across the middle and the cover of their two forwards. So Barcelona's two forwards were primarily looking to, one, take away the holding midfielder and press the central defenders into wider positions, which then put a lot of stress on the three midfielders because the back five were pinned. So the wingbacks couldn't jump as freely as the Bayern Munich fullbacks could. So what this did is it forced the midfielders to shift over a very long distance and often made them late and allowed Bayern Munich progression. The Barcelona back five are highlighted as we see here, and then we see the midfield three staggering themselves with two holding midfielders to better protect the space between the lines when Bayern Munich did overload and give them direct access to the advanced midfielders of Bayern Munich. And then the two forwards were split by the attacking midfielder who was positioned directly on the holding midfielder of Bayern Munich. But Bayern Munich can position themselves in different areas to then promote movement into different positions. So in the last picture we saw them overloading the center, and now we see Sané positioning himself in the wide area, making the central movement, to then work with Goretzka, Müller, or Lewandowski to then make inverted runs in behind, or to then move in the blind side while the central player fans out, and then Sané would find space in the center. And the same goes for the partnership on the weak side through the half space. These players moved off each other very well and created these partnerships to then use positional interchanges to then create space between the lines. And then at the base of all this was a double pivot with Goretzka being very free and having the ability to go forward. But these two players also kept control, so then when the transition occurred, they wouldn't be caught out or overextended. And here we can see Bayern almost lining up in a 3-4-3 in the second half with their double pivot and their asymmetric back four, then creating similar width with different players in different positions. And in the second half, we see Sané take up more of a free role in central position, so now inverting even more than the usual half space. He positions himself directly in the center, almost as a number 10, which gave him a lot of freedom between the line, and then he could then position himself in half spaces by starting in the central corridor. Barcelona's back five really lacked in their defensive phase the ability to isolate possession for Bayern Munich. As we see, they have free players on the weak side in both instances, and so when the ball was able to be circulated, they would then have free players coming from deeper areas and able to then displace the Barcelona players and then create this numerical advantage moving forward and allow them to progress even higher. We see now what this looks like for Barcelona out of possession. When the ball is circulated in Bayern Munich's favor, the two forwards are both attracted into one side, now making them useless out of possession. And now we have our midfield three from Bayern Munich, our three central midfielders, and Sané as our number 10 between the lines. So then Sane's able to find this space because of the movement of Lewandowski, pinning two players, and through the third central defender of Barcelona being attracted to the space between the lines. Sane is then able to find space either in behind or take advantage of the players in the blind spot. So these partnerships among the Bayern Munich players, creating space for one another through pinning and exploiting the defensive mechanisms of Barcelona, made a big difference throughout the match, and that's going to work. And that's where we're going to cap off the analysis for today. Just wanted to get something quick out for a Champions League match, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next one.